I'm going to talk now to Paul Hunter. He is a Professor of Medicine at the University of East Anglia. Professor Hunter, hello to you.
Hello.
I want to ask you about vaccine passports. We're not getting them in England, according to the Health Secretary yesterday, although it was only a week ago that the Vaccines Minister was making the case for them. Who's right?
Well, I think the most things have some value. The issue with vaccine passports is the value that they bring worth the effort. And actually, when you consider that vaccination, double vaccination, doesn't mean that you're not infectious, doesn't mean that you can't spread the infection or indeed get sick yourself, then, and combined with that, the fact that a lot of people who haven't been vaccinated have actually already had the infection and recovered, the difference in risk between the unvaccinated and the vaccinated is somewhat less than it was even a few months ago. And in many ways, it's difficult to see whether vaccine passports would be the thing that would make all the difference this year. So I'm actually quite happy that they're not going to be progressed in England, at least.
Right. OK. So I wonder then, so on scientific grounds, you say it's almost irrelevant. I'm putting that word into your mouth.
Yeah,
but
I think that maybe not irrelevant, but certainly the value is probably not worth the downsides of having the vaccine passports.
OK, fair enough. Right, if there is a surge in winter infections of COVID, of flu, of other respiratory illnesses, and the NHS looks vulnerable to potentially being overwhelmed, what would you like to see the government bring in to try and stop that happening?
Well, I think the first thing is that are we going to see a surge in cases this winter? And it's difficult to predict. At the moment, case numbers in England and indeed probably in Scotland are starting to fall, and we hope that that trend continues. And if it does, restrictions won't be necessary. I think we are getting to the point where we are coming into a sort of equilibrium with this infection. And once we've achieved that, individual restrictions don't actually have that much impact in totality. I think it's still important that people who are positive and who are infectious self-isolate as currently. Beyond that, it's difficult to know what else we can do that would actually make a big difference in the long term. A lot of things that we could do would have a short-term impact, but ultimately not a great deal of impact on the epidemic as a whole. So, I certainly think it would be inappropriate to close schools like we were doing last autumn. I don't think that would have any great benefit. And in fact, the evidence from Scotland is that schools didn't really contribute to their surge in the summer. So I don't think we'll be needing to do that. And it's the booster vaccination campaign, I think, is going to be important, not as wide as some people are suggesting, but I think wider than what we currently know. I would certainly include more people with underlying medical conditions and probably people over 80 as well within the need for booster vaccines.
OK, that's interesting. So booster vaccines for people with other medical conditions and the elderly, but not all over 50s.
No, the evidence actually is that the vaccines are still holding up really well in terms of protection against severe disease. But there are people who will not have responded as well as we would have liked to their first round. The older people with obesity, people with other underlying conditions that can reduce the impact of vaccines, not just COVID vaccines, but indeed many other infectious disease vaccines as well, are often less effective in these groups. And I think we should be offering boosters to those, but not more widely than that.
And where are you on jabs for 12 to 15-year-olds, healthy 12 to 15-year-olds? The mood music seems to be that the government is going to go for it in England, but as we know, the Vaccine Advisory Body has suggested the health benefits are absolutely marginal.
Yeah, absolutely, and might even be against vaccination in that age group. There was a preprint that came out a few days ago which suggested that the risk of myocarditis in teenage boys, not girls, but in teenage boys, may have been higher than was originally suspected. So
Okay.
it is a big.
What does that mean, a preprint? Sorry, Professor Hunter.
Sorry, a preprint, a paper that has yet to go through peer review.
Right, okay. So other experts haven't read it and said it's...
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
So one has to be a little bit cautious about that. But, you know, having read it myself, I suspect it will get through peer review reasonably easily. And given that already a large proportion of children, certainly teenagers, younger teenagers, have already almost certainly had the infection and recovered, the benefits against the disadvantages are quite difficult to judge. And I personally wouldn't advocate for vaccinating that age group.
Okay, interesting. Thank you very much. Thank you for talking to us.